At first glance, seat 12F was nothing special. Just another window seat on a cross-country flight, a narrow spot squeezed between the hum of the engines and the chatter of families, businessmen, and restless children. In it sat a man who blended almost too well into the background. A plain gray t-shirt, a worn leather jacket folded neatly in the overhead bin, and a battered backpack shoved under the seat in front of him. To most passengers, he looked like just another tired single dad traveling with his young daughter, nothing extraordinary, nothing remarkable. His daughter, no older than 8, had her head tucked against his shoulder, already drifting into a peaceful nap while clutching a small stuffed bear. Flight attendants passed him without a second thought. The man smiled politely, nodded when spoken to, and made no fuss. He was the type of traveler who didn't demand attention. But for those who paid closer attention, there were little signs that something about him was different. The way his eyes scanned the cabin, quietly observant, catching details no one else noticed. The way his posture remained upright even after hours of sitting, shoulders squared as if he'd been trained to carry weight heavier than luggage. The man's name, at least the one printed on his boarding pass, was Daniel Reed. But that wasn't the name that would soon have the entire plane, and even the skies above, pausing in silent respect. The turbulence hit without warning. A sharp jolt rattled the plane, making passengers gasp. Drinks spilled, and overhead bins rattled. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but urgent, explaining that the flight would be diverting due to airspace congestion caused by a sudden military training exercise nearby. The words military training exercise seemed casual to most on board, but not to Daniel. His sharp eyes flicked to the window, scanning the blue sky with a precision that came from muscle memory. And then, there they were. Sleek, deadly, and magnificent. 2 F-22 Raptors cut through the clouds, their silver-gray bodies glinting under the sun. They weren't hostile, they were escorting, circling, maneuvering like sharks in the water. For most passengers, it was a once-in-a-lifetime thrill to see fighter jets flying so close. Excited chatter spread through the cabin, phones raised to capture shaky videos. But Daniel sat frozen, his jaw tight, his eyes unblinking. He knew every curve of those jets, every sound of their engines, every maneuver they made. They weren't just machines to him. They were ghosts of a past he had left behind. The plane's captain tried to reassure everyone, explaining over the intercom that they had been asked to hold position temporarily for clearance. But just then, something strange happened. One of the F-22s broke formation and came closer, almost too close. The pilot inside tilted his helmeted head toward the passenger windows, as if looking for someone. Daniel's daughter stirred awake and whispered, "Daddy, are those your planes?" Her innocent question made him smile faintly. He brushed a hand over her hair and whispered back, "Not anymore, sweetheart." But deep inside, he knew the truth, those were his planes once. He thought he had buried that life years ago, the life of a combat pilot, known by a call sign that carried weight in every squadron across the globe. He had chosen family over glory, raising his daughter after tragedy took his wife. But the past, it seemed, wasn't done with him yet. What came next was something no passenger on that flight would ever forget. Over the intercom, a new voice suddenly crackled, not the captain's, but a deep, authoritative tone. "Passenger in seat 12F, call sign Hawkeye, is that you?" The cabin fell silent. Every passenger froze, eyes darting toward Daniel in disbelief. His daughter looked up at him, confused. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering courage, and then slowly nodded, leaning toward the intercom button on the seat. His voice was steady, calm, but carried the weight of command. "This is Hawkeye." And in that instant, both F-22 pilots straightened in their cockpits. Even from the cabin windows, passengers could see the subtle change, the respect, the sharp snap of attention. The man in seat 12F was no ordinary father. He was a legend. The murmurs in the cabin grew louder. Whispers raced from row to row, "Who is he? Why are fighter pilots talking to him?" Passengers leaned into aisles, trying to get a better look at the quiet man with the call sign Hawkeye. Daniel, Hawkeye, remained calm, though his daughter clutched his arm, eyes wide. He gave her a reassuring smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. They're just saying hello." But he knew it was far more than that. The F-22 pilot's voice returned over the comms, this time with unmistakable respect. "Sir, it's an honor. We've studied your missions. Your flight path over Black Canyon, your interception record. You're a legend at the Academy. Command wanted to confirm if it was really you on board." Gasps rippled through the plane. Some passengers even applauded, though they didn't fully understand the magnitude of what was being said. The captain of the commercial flight, clearly stunned, spoke next. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have someone very, very special with us today. It's not often the United States Air Force pauses a training operation just to honor one of their own." Daniel shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had never wanted recognition. He had walked away from it all for the sake of raising his daughter. But the respect, the reverence in those young pilots' voices, stirred something inside him, an echo of the man he used to be. The F-22s tilted their wings in salute, a gesture that sent shivers through every passenger watching. One of the pilots' voices came again, "Hawkeye, if you ever want to return, the skies are still yours. Command says the door is always open." Daniel chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Tell Command thank you, but my mission now is a different one." He glanced at his daughter, who was beaming with pride despite not fully understanding. "She's my wingman these days." The pilots laughed respectfully, acknowledging the statement with another wing salute before breaking formation. The roar of their engines faded into the clouds as they returned to their training routes. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was electric. Passengers clapped, some even standing, cheering for the quiet father in seat 12F. Flight attendants wiped tears from their eyes. Even the captain left the cockpit briefly to shake Daniel's hand. But Daniel himself remained humble. He thanked them politely, never boasting, never expanding on the stories hinted at by those pilots. His daughter, however, looked up at him with eyes full of awe. "Daddy, are you a hero?" He hesitated, then leaned down to kiss her forehead. "No, sweetheart. I'm just your dad. That's the most important mission I'll ever have." The rest of the flight passed with an almost sacred hush, as if everyone on board understood they had witnessed something once in a lifetime. A living legend, sitting quietly in seat 12F, who had traded the glory of the skies for the quiet, heroic duty of fatherhood. When the plane landed, passengers took photos with him, shaking his hand, thanking him for his service. But Daniel only smiled and kept his daughter close, walking into the terminal like any other father traveling home. And yet, in the skies above, fighter pilots would tell the story for years to come, about the day Hawkeye revealed himself, and even the fiercest guardians of the skies stood at attention.